Boba Fett is looking for Pig Nose, who hangs out with Buttface.
Yeah. Hello, welcome to Guide to the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her brother, William.
And today we're going to talk about the horror aspects of the greater Star Wars universe.
Yeah, that's right.
A little bit of a pun, I suppose. Star Wars universe, galaxies? No?
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Well,
I don't know. I actually don't know how big it is. I don't think that they do either. Star Wars is obviously a franchise that has been made up as it goes along.
Right.
Not that you can plan out 50 years of storytelling from the beginning, but I don't know, it's just funny to, if you look even a little bit closely at Star Wars, you notice how it all falls apart.
Yeah, if you
I have no idea how big it is.
If you keep pulling the sweater.
Yeah, keep pulling the sweater. Eventually the whole thing will unravel.
Well, before we get into that, I just want to mention if you want to be part of our universe, our galaxy, which does have known boundaries, you can follow us at GTTUpod on all social media. You can also go to patreon.com/GTTUpod. And if you donate $4 or more per month, you can get monthly bonus episodes. You basically get your own private extra podcast that comes out once a month, which we call the Netherworld Dispatch. So go check that out. It's super cool. And William, roll that beautiful bean footage.
All right. So I'm going to teach you. Actually, I do have some bean information.
Oh.
I do. We're going to get to the beans right away, Kristen.
Mr. Bean? Does he have a cameo in Star Wars?
I came up with a Mr. Bean joke.
Great.
There's a bit of a Darth Bean I'm going to tell you about in a couple of seconds.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So one of the big things that I found out in trying to figure out all the horror influence of Star Wars or Star Wars stories that have a horror bent to them is that if you know nothing about Star Wars, that's fine.
I know almost nothing about Star Wars.
Yeah, I know a decent amount, but I have not gone as deep as doing anything beyond watching the movies.
Right.
But here's the basic thing you need to know about Star Wars. It's about the Jedi versus the Sith. The Sith are the bad guys. And they all have magic powers. They have telekinesis. They can use lightsabers. Like, it's all the basic stuff. That's all you really need to know for what we're going to talk about.
Cool.
And so in trying to do some research for this show, I wanted to see, like, all right, well, what are the Sith? Do they have a particularly interesting horror background?
Yeah.
And
what are they working toward? What do they want? They just want power?
Yes.
Yeah. When we were watching, we just saw the most recent Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker. That's what it is, right? And at one point, a bad guy is trying to turn another bad guy even more bad or keep him on the side of bad. And he's like, he says something, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he's like, I'll give you your own empire that you can be king of.
Right.
And I was thinking how weird it is to not like start within living an already existing structure and have your own ideas about how it should be run and be like, I want to be king so that I can make all these people form to my will.
Right.
Like, in that, the motivation is having a will and a point of view that you think is right and wanting everybody else to conform to it. What this other bad guy was offering him was like, no strings attached. You don't have to have any point of view, but I'll give you people so that they can all worship you.
They'll all just follow you.
Yeah, no matter what.
I'll give you followers for whatever it is that you think is right to do, but we don't even know what that is.
Right. So then the aim there or the goal is not like, it doesn't really matter what you think is right. It's just about getting power and having a bunch of people who are like in thrall to you.
Right.
Which is very weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the ways that like the children of celebrities can become insta-famous rather than having to earn it.
Yes. The reason that I thought this thing during the movie and then I forgot about it. And then Ryan and he was like sitting next to me while I was watching something where somebody was talking about how they want to be a mogul. And that was all they said. It was some
I can't wait to be a mogul.
Yeah, it was a kid of a celebrity. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it is now, but it was somebody who's like, my aim is to be a mogul. My whole thing is that I'm working to be a mogul. And he was like, it's so weird that you would your aim is just mogul without anything else behind it. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I was thinking during Star Wars.
Is mogul something that even really has its own definition? Or is it just sort of like you're the big honcho?
I think it's like the big honcho.
My goal is to be a honcho.
Yeah, basically. So in Star Wars, there was somebody who was trying to appeal to somebody by being like, I'll let you be a honcho.
I hope it's not too late. I'm 33. Is it a little too late to start down a new path to just want to be a honcho?
No, I think you could be a honcho now.
I want to be a honcho.
Think about those memes that go around where they're like, this isn't going to be accurate, but it's like, Maya Angelou didn't write her first poem until 45.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, 50 when Apple started. Like, not
exactly.
true. But you know what? You could absolutely be a honcho.
Will Rogers wasn't even a honcho until he turned, I don't know, let's say 70.
Yeah.
I've got a ways to go.
That's right.
Well, so anyway, in trying to like figure out who are the Sith, what do they do? It should go, listen, if you're a major Star Wars fan and you've come to this episode because we called it Star Wars Horror Stories, and you're thinking, oh, I'm really going to get some deep understanding of the extended universe. No. Abandon that thought.
Yes.
We've seen the movies.
That's it.
That's it.
Star Wars surface observers.
When I went to look up the Sith and figure out who they are and what they want, it's like reading the Bible. There is like an extensive history that goes back eons. There's like Darth Bane and Darth Tyranid.
There are lots of Darths.
Whatever.
I deal with Darth Scabrous.
What is that?
I don't know. He's like a Darth bad guy.
Oh, okay. You said your story. I thought it was like a
yeah.
medical condition. I have Darth Scabrous.
I deal with Darth Scabrous.
I deal with it. But anyway, so I don't know what the Sith are. I don't know what they do. But I did learn this nugget from trying to read their Wikipedia entry. It's complicated, but the word Sith, which George Lucas came up with to mean like the bad guys who have magic powers, actually comes from a term, the AOS space SI, which are a supernatural race in Irish and Scottish mythology. They're kind of fairies or elves. Even on Wikipedia, they describe junior Sith as being brownies, which we talked about in my favorite episode we ever did, Brownies and Daniel Stern.
I really love that episode.
So junior Sith are mere brownies and household spirits, but elder Sith are powerful sorcerers and warriors. So then I found the Wikipedia for the AOC. Now, I can't figure out how to pronounce all these things. This eventually becomes the word Sith, but it all means the same thing. People of the mounds.
Weird.
Meaning literally, like, think about like Irish rolling hills, lochs and glens, the people of the mounds.
Yeah, they're ground dwellers, right?
Yes, they're fairy folk that live in the mounds.
That's awesome.
In Gaelic folklore, people appease the Sith with offerings, and you have to make sure you don't insult the, what they call them, good neighbors or fair folk. They are fierce guardians of their abodes, and they will retaliate if you invade their homes.
Hey, samesies.
They'll kidnap your children and replace them with changelings.
Ooh.
So don't mess with them.
Yeah.
Now here's where we get into the good stuff. A Banshee is a Sith. Because a Banshee is an Irish, image of a dead person who's going to give you this, warning. We talked about Banshees way back.
Right.
And that's how I learned that the Banshee has a Scottish counterpart known as the Bean Sith.
The Bean Sith. So that's the real life name of it.
The real life name is the Bean Sith. And so it's like, that gets like anglicized over the course of time. So Bean, literally B-E-A-N, Sith, is sometimes also known as the Bansith, B-A-N, Bansith, Banshee. It's the same thing.
That's awesome.
Also known as a night washerwoman, or the little washer, or the little washer of the sorrow.
Well, I remember washerwomen. I don't remember how, but they factored in prominently in the Banshee story.
Mm-hmm. I think it was almost used as, if I'm remembering properly, it was like a shorthand to say that they were like, not like, powerful people.
Okay.
They were washerwomen.
Yeah.
Lowly, I think, was the idea behind that.
So was it that Banshees are lowly? Like as far as like paranormal entities, like Banshees are the washerwomen of the paranormal world?
Well,
I literally don't remember.
I think the shape they take, the fact of the matter is I don't remember.
Okay,
but I think
fine.
the idea was that like the shape they take was of a lowly washerwoman.
Okay.
But as a spirit,
yeah.
they are a force to be reckoned with. Because, they will stare at you with dark glee to announce that your death is on the horizon.
Yeah, scream and celebrate it.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. You guys should listen to the Banshee episode. It's sweet.
Oh, Banshees are the best.
I think that the audio on that's a little funky, but like the content is primo.
Yeah. Darth Bean can be seen in lonely places beside a stream or pool, washing the blood from the linen and grave clothes of those who are about to die. Supposedly, they are spirits of women who died giving birth and are now doomed to perform this task of washing blood off of clothes of those who are about to die until the day their lives would have normally ended. So it's a sentence with an endpoint.
Yeah.
What would your lifespan have been? That's how long you have to foretell people's doom.
That's awesome. So is it
Interesting.
like you had a preordained, I think you won't know the answer, it's just theoretical. You had a preordained natural lifespan,
Right.
but it got cut short.
Yeah. Because you had to go ahead and die during childbirth, so now you're
Yeah.
punished?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Right. Or is it your individual lifespan that was like written in the stars?
Right.
Like Kristen will die when she's 79. Or was it the average lifespan of a person at that time?
Right, exactly.
So
So it's like
lifespan is
30.
actually 30. So
Right.
it's actually not that bad.
Yeah. People from the past would see us today and be like, magic has prolonged your lives.
Immortal being.
Unnatural.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be
Unnatural
trying to
spirit.
exercise us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their fate could be avoided if all the clothing left by the deceased woman had been washed. I don't really know what that means. If their own clothes were washed or if they finished cleaning everything that was laid out for them to clean. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I guess if you just finish it fast, then
Just
you're
work
in good
fast.
shape. Yeah.
If a bean sees you, you'll lose the use of your limbs.
Oh.
There, in some countries, your fate is far worse.
Yeah.
But that's also still a bummer.
Yeah.
I saw Darth Bean and my legs
Right now, my
stopped
limbs
working.
don't work.
Sometimes she has webbed feet and is called a night duck.
Ah.
It was a popular bit
These are
of
kind
lore.
of cute names for a scary thing. A bean Sith or a night duck.
I know, I love it. One popular Highland story connected with the washing of death shrouds regards the so-called Mermaid of Loch, Slin. A maiden from Cromarty was walking along a path by the side of this loch one Sabbath morning, and after turning a corner, she saw a tall woman standing in the water, knocking clothes on a stone with a bludgeon. Washing them, I guess.
Yes, that's how you wash things back then.
Beat the hell out of your clothes
What
on a rock.
Pain in the ass.
Smash your clothes on a
Yeah.
rock with another
With
rock.
a bludgeon.
On a nearby bleaching green, she observed more than 30 smocks and shirts, all smeared with blood. Shortly following the appearance of this figure, the roof of Fern Abbey collapsed during worship service, burying the congregation in debris and killing 36 people.
Oh my God, so no wonder that poor bean had so many shirts to wash.
That being had a lot of work to do
Yeah.
that day. Historically, the Abbey roof did collapse in 1742, with a death toll reckoned at nearly 50.
Oh, wow.
So, did people tell the story of the Bean Sith to
Right.
later explain why the roof caved in, or did someone see the Bean Sith
Yeah.
and then it happened?
Right, it was a harbinger.
Mhm. So here are some other versions that I really liked. In Brittany, the Breton washerwomen wash grave clothes, usually at night under the moonlight, and are notable for their intense dislike of being disturbed, cursing those who dare to do so. They are known to
Again,
ask...
same.
They're known to ask passers-by for help in wringing clothes, breaking the arms of those who do so reluctantly, and drowning those who refuse.
Oh.
So you better do it, and with glee. I'd love to help you.
Yeah, I'd be delighted. I wonder if they try to break their arms on the low, like
Right.
they're going to like wring out a shirt and then they just wring their arm instead, or what?
Well, there
This
may be
is
an answer for you.
Awesome.
It has nothing to do with Star Wars, really, but I found it and I had to read it.
Oh, of course.
So for everybody who came for Star Wars, don't worry. Everything from here on will basically be exclusively Star Wars. But I may have an answer for you about that wringing your arm thing. Because in Wales and Cornwall, a passerby must avoid being seen by the washerwomen. If they do get seen, they're required to help wring out the sheets. Not only that, if they twist the sheets in the same direction as the washerwomen, the individual's arms will be wrenched from their sockets and they will get pulled into the wet sheets and killed instantly.
Oh my, that's so awesome.
If
So these washwomen don't be like being copied.
don't copy me. Well, I think maybe is it supposed to be that like you twist it in the opposite direction to get further moisture out?
I have no idea.
Is it a waste of effort to continue twisting in one direction?
I have no idea.
But don't do it.
I wouldn't think so.
Here's-
That would just undo the twist if you went in the opposite way.
Yeah, you're right. If you twist in the opposite direction, the washerwomen are required to grant you 3 wishes.
Oh my God. This is a tough little game because I bet these rules are not laid out.
No,
You just happen to.
you figure it out through trial and error.
Ay, ay, ay.
A lot of error.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I love those stories.
I know. So those are the Sith. They are real.
I'm happy we're doing the Star Wars thing just for that.
I know.
alone,
I was very
what you
happy
just
to
did.
find
That's
it.
awesome.
And honestly, I think that George Lucas must have been familiar with the concept of Sith as being fairies and magic folk.
Is he Irish by any chance?
You know, I don't know.
How do I find this out?
I don't know.
George Lucas Irish. You can keep talking.
Yeah, George
Yeah.
Lucas
Irishman.
hereditary background. nationality. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it would be national. Excuse me.
But so, yeah, I guess he just worked it into Star Wars and made them the bad guys and turned them into, quite frankly, Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, the big bad guy, is kind of a cackling witch.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a banshee.
Yeah, there was a lot of like horror stuff in this last one. He was very scary.
Yeah, that was the one thing that before we went to see Rise of Skywalker, I told Kristen, she had no interest in seeing Star Wars.
No.
But I was trying to tell her that there's this one character, the Emperor, Senator Palpatine, also known as Darth Sidious, who is basically like out of Evil Dead. He's basically a Sam Raimi style witch who's just cackling constantly and just, I don't know, he's very witchy.
Yeah.
And he loves being evil, which is the best thing about him.
He does seem to delight in evilness.
Loves it.
Okay, so he isn't Irish, but he is Scottish. He's of German, Swiss German, English, Scottish, and distant Dutch and French descent.
Oh, okay.
Whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So he may have known, though, through his Scottish heritage about the Sith. And then
totally.
Worked him in.
Or he's just like into this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so worked it in.
True.
He worked it in.
He worked it in. He worked it in. I've got another creature this time that is exclusively a Star Wars creature, but it follows the same rules that you and I have found time and time again on this show of a cautionary tale you tell your children to get them to behave.
Yeah.
And so this is a story that Star Wars people would tell their Star Wars children to make sure that they don't act like idiots. This is the scary bedtime story of Lord Nyax.
Ooh.
It was told to Corellian children.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. That Lord Nyax came to steal young boys and girls from their beds. Here's what they would say. If you keep on being a bad boy, Lord Nyax will come for you.
All right. Short and sweet.
He was described as a monstrous pale ghost or as a man shrouded in a dark cloak with sickly yellow eyes, a hooked nose, sharp teeth, and long nails. So
that is scary.
It's very scary.
I mean, it sounds traditionally witchy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that is why people have pointed out that there are many similarities between the description of Lord Nyax, who's fictional, and Galactic Emperor Palpatine.
Yes.
Furthermore, Darth Vader, whose name is Darth Father. Vader is father.
Oh. Vada.
Hello, Vada. Hello, Mother.
Hello, Vada. Here I am at Camp Clarnax. What did you just say? What's the where are these children from?
Hello, Mother. Hello, Father. Here I am at Camp Clarnax. No rhyme anymore.
Where are these children from?
Corellia.
Oh, okay.
They're Corellian children.
Well,
Han Solo was Corellian, Kristen, you know. He drove a Corellian YT freighter, the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, of course I do.
I know that.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, Darth Vader, who is Darth Father, was tasked with killing younglings.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as just children.
Right.
Everything has to have a name.
Funny name.
Cool name. So he killed children, and the entire reason he turned evil was because the love of his life was going to die in childbirth. So Darth Vader also became known as tied in with the Lord Nyax story because he did steal children.
Yeah.
Not only that, but evidently in the extended universe, one of the tasks that Vader would routinely carry out is travel from planet to planet, trying to find children who were force sensitive, and he would take them or kill them to make sure they couldn't grow up to fight against the Empire.
Yeah.
So Darth Vader kind of was Lord Nyax.
Yes.
What was originally just a bedtime story to make sure children go to sleep, damn it.
Right.
Yeah.
But instead of Lord Nyax just having kind of a purpose of like liking to kill children, it's actually a baby who's like afraid of having their power usurped.
Yes, it's true.
A dork.
And then evidently in the year 27 after the Battle of Yavin, which I told you about, Kristen, tell everybody what the Battle of Yavin is. Do you remember?
So many younglings perished in the Battle of Yavin. Lord Nyax went ham in the Battle of Yavin.
Do you actually not know what I'm talking about?
No.
I texted you before the way that the timeline works in Star Wars. Do you remember it at all?
No. I mean, I have it written down that like something happened before the Battle of Yavin, but you didn't explain to me what that is.
The Battle of Yavin was the end of the original Star Wars movie, Star Wars A New Hope, episode 4.
Okay.
Come on. Yeah. Anyway. So in the year 27 after the Battle of Yavin, the mentally damaged Dark Jedi in training, Eric Ismarin, assumed the name of Lord Nyax after reading it in the minds of his frightened victims. I guess they felt like
they're like, oh my God, he is coming for that's kind of awesome and creepy. Like, even if you knew that like Lord Nyax is a bedtime story to scare children, when a dark force is coming after you, there's some sort of like weird little childlike thing in the back of your mind that's like, maybe Lord Nyax is real and this is what this is. Well, like some sort of like mental breakdown.
Now that you've said that, it makes me think of Jamie Lee Curtis versus the Boogeyman in Halloween.
Yeah.
That Michael Myers coming for them was like the Boogeyman legend she'd been told as a child.
Totally.
So he adopted the name Lord Nyax because he felt like Nyax sounded unique, and Lord meant that he was more important than everyone else. Seems weaker than what you just said.
Definitely.
Under this new identity, he brought terror to the citizens of a bunch of places. But then the fake Nyax, this new Lord Nyax, was apparently crushed to death by a combination of rocks and boulders from the Jedi Temple ruins, which you would think are just the same.
Yeah, I guess
rocks
it's
and boulders,
size difference.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's crushed by a combination of rocks and boulders.
Sure, doesn't even really seem worth mentioning.
I have two teeny tiny things before we jump to your Goliath.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars has to sort of have everything that the real world has, there are also vampires.
Okay.
I looked it up. There was a guy named Tel Angor who a bunch of good Jedis were trying to get him more connected to the Force. It all went wrong, and now he feeds off the Force. So he literally will track down people who are strong with the Force to suck the life out of them.
So like Rose the Hat and her friends getting the steam.
Yes, exactly like Rose the Hat.
Yeah, from Dr. Sleep.
But then that worked in, obviously, vampires into Star Wars lore.
Yeah.
Not only are there ghosts, because, Luke can come back as a ghost, and Obi-Wan can be a ghost and stuff. Usually that's depicted as a good thing, and they seem to have, like, their remnants of their spirit gets increasingly more in tune with the Force, and they lose some of their shape and form as they just become part of eternity.
Right.
But there are also actual ghosts. I found a story where called Ghosts of Hoth. Hoth is the cold planet that they're on when like Luke gets squished into the insides of a pony.
What?
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
He's freezing to death, and so Han Solo cuts open a monster that they were riding and then pushes Luke inside it to keep him warm.
Oh, wow.
That happens in the second movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Wild.
Shortly before the events of that movie, Chewbacca was trying to fix the Millennium Falcon, and he saw a ghost, evidently. It was the ghost of a little girl, and he had to fall. He was afraid of her.
Yeah.
He locked himself in the Falcon and refused to come out. And then Han was like, come on out, bud. And they followed the ghost girl's instructions, or she pointed at something, and there was a wall that was covered, and inside there was a Yeti.
Oh.
What are the Yetis called in Star Wars? A Wampa.
Okay.
And there was a Wampa inside that had killed and eaten the girl and all her people. And Chewbacca found her bracelet in there, and it allowed her spirit to...
Oh, wow. It's like a traditional ghost story.
Traditional ghost story that evidently happened like 3 seconds before the movie Empire Strikes Back happened, is that Chewbacca had a ghost adventure.
Quite a time for Chewbacca.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah.
Push this axe into my face. There are also witches called the Nightsisters, which I tried to learn a lot about.
Yeah.
They're like warriors. They're a race of female warriors that are strong with magic. They don't know it as the Force. They know it as straight up magic.
Okay.
And they look kind of badass, but there wasn't that much information that I could find about them that was suitable to tell. Of course, there's like 45 pages of information about their extensive history.
But nothing you could like distill into. I gotcha.
But I love the name Nightsisters.
I do too.
I think it's really cool.
What are the name of those sisters that we always quote from Scooby-Doo? Is the Weird Sisters?
The Weird Sisters.
Yeah.
Named after,
Dreams,
I think, named after the Macbeth witches.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Honestly, I was saying the other day that if I were magically put in charge of Star Wars, probably what I would do is write a story about 3 witches, like Macbeth, who are misunderstood by a group of villagers as being monsters, but really they're like strong with the Force.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That would just be the story. I guess they would be the origin of the Nightsisters. I just think it's cool.
It is really
And it gets away from all the Sith and light and dark stuff to just be about like a little horror story.
Yeah, totally.
There's a primitive civilization and there are witches who live on the outskirts that they blame for all their ills. But really, it's a Star Wars story.
Yeah, you can like make it a little bit smaller in a way. Now, I have a stupid question.
Okay.
So, you know how in the earlier movies, I know that I guess Obi-Wan kind of shows up and he's almost like holograph or hologram looking or whatever. Is it that he's a ghost and he's showing up, or what I guess I kind of assumed, I don't even know if I've ever thought about it before this. I guess I assumed that he was just strong Jedi, that he can kind of like transcend maybe almost dimensions or something, and he can kind of pop up different places. So is it that he's dead and he's coming to talk to them as a ghost, or is it that he can kind of like go wherever because he's that powerful?
It is that he is dead and he is coming back as a ghost.
Okay, cool.
Only some people know how to do it. Obi-Wan is the first person we ever saw do it.
Yeah.
Yoda, later on, it's implied in the original trilogy that he can come back as a ghost. And when they made the prequels in like 1999, 2000-ish, they suggest that Liam Neeson has learned how to do it himself.
Okay.
And so he may have been, Liam Neeson's character is Qui-Gon Jinn. He may have been the first Jedi to learn how to do it, so it's not common.
Okay, cool. Is he a good guy?
Liam Neeson?
Yes. Okay.
Yes. He's
all
a
right.
good guy.
So it seems like an exclusive thing that good guys can do.
I don't think we've ever seen a non-good guy come back from the dead.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right. Just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to tell you guys about basically zombie stormtroopers.
Yes. This is what I was sort of like trying to get at with like Star Wars needs to have everything in it.
Yeah.
Like I just described how they made vampires work, how they made witches work.
Right.
And evidently they made zombies work.
Yeah. And like pretty traditional zombies. So they don't show up in any of the main movies, but they show up in at least a couple of novels, and they ended up appearing in video games.
Okay.
And in I think a couple of the animated either just episodes or series altogether. So they first appeared in the Star Wars Legends novel Death Troopers, and they later came back in the prequel to that novel called Red Harvest.
Which are both great names.
Yeah, totally. Red Harvest was originally called Black Orchid, and I'm going to recap both of these books for you guys and just tell you like the horror elements of these books, basically.
Yeah.
It was called Black Orchid because a black orchid is prominent in it, and they ended up renaming it because they were worried it sounded too much like a romance novel.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know.
So Black Orchid to Red Harvest. Yeah, I guess Red Harvest makes me think of Kevin Costner more than anything. I associate him with
What,
corn.
like Hunt for the Red October?
No, I associate Kevin
With corn.
Costner with like, I guess because of Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
But also like he's just like, when they call somebody
Very
like
American.
a corn-fed
Yeah.
American or whatever the hell.
Yeah, he does
He
seem.
likes baseball and corn.
Yeah, no, that seems right to me. I think that the Red Harvest is more, it's like a blood harvest.
Cool.
We're harvesting blood or whatever.
That's sweet.
So the way that this virus happened, which I'll go into more because I'm going to talk about these books, it occurred between the Battle of Yavin, and the Battle of Hoth, or Hoth, or whatever you said.
Okay,
Yep.
so that means that it happened between Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope,
Yep.
and Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back,
Yes.
which are the first two Star Wars movies ever made.
Okay, so this all happens before that.
Okay.
So the way these zombies are, they're pretty traditional, mindless, like shambling, walking, cannibal zombies who want to eat you. They're slower than humans, but they're also more resilient, so they can take more damage over time, but they're not going to be like booking it after you. They can communicate with each other telepathically. They can learn, which is a little bit different, and they can kind of band together because of that telepathy and sort of act as one larger body.
Oh, that's
to sort
weird.
of like come after you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hive mind. That's like what ants
Yes,
do.
exactly. They have hive mind. So let's talk about the book Death Troopers. So it takes place about a year before Episode 4, A New Hope. And yeah, does that make sense for the timeline you just said?
I thought you made it sound like everything happens between A New Hope and Empire, but I'm not sure.
I guess it says that the virus maybe. So what I have written is the virus occurred, so I guess broke out between the Battle of Yavin and the Battle of.
Then yes, that means between A New Hope and Empire.
Okay, all right.
It's hard to believe that while Luke and Han and Leia and Chewie were doing their thing,
I guess
zombies,
another planet or something.
zombies broke
in
out
their galaxy.
It's weird to think that that's happening at the same time.
Yeah, a lot was going on in that galaxy
busy.
all at once. I mean, I guess galaxies are big.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of action.
A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, something that we talk about a lot here and now happens.
Yes.
Zombies.
Exactly.
I gotta say, if you're a gigantic Star Wars fan, I assume that there are also like romantic Star Wars novels.
I bet there are,
And,
yeah.
like there's probably everything.
Yeah, maybe they span like every genre.
I really think that Star Wars has to be its own playground for everything to take place in.
Mm-hmm.
Like from a business perspective almost.
Yeah.
Keep everybody in.
Well, also, it's such a humongous fandom that, people within that fandom have other interests.
True.
That they might end up like merging with their Star Wars interests. So
Right.
it makes total sense. So in this book, and obviously going by the title, these like zombie troopers are referred to as death troopers, but the name was later changed to undead troopers in future properties to avoid confusion because death troopers become their own other thing in animated series.
Oh.
So
That's all
yeah.
disappointing. Death Troopers sounds really, really cool, which I guess is why they wanted to reuse it for something else.
Yeah, exactly. And because this, I guess, was like a less popular property,
Yeah.
the popularity of that kind of stamped out the name being used in these novels and stuff.
Undead Troopers just doesn't
a
have
little
the same
clunkier.
ring. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So even the cover of this book is all horror-y. So it is, it's a bloody stormtrooper helmet that's being hung from hooks, and it has, and looks like a decapitated head. So it reminds me of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Yeah.
basically. Both these books were written by Joe Schreiber, who's a straight up horror author in general.
Oh, is that right?
But he's dabbled in Star Wars stuff.
That's interesting.
I know.
That's
So
very interesting.
I guess exactly what I just said. Like people who are into Star Wars also have other interests, and then some of them merge the two.
Right. And
So-
if you're in charge of like the Star Wars publishing empire,
Right.
and you want to have a horror book in there, go to somebody who knows horror.
Yeah.
Which is why they got Liev Schreiber.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Good for him. So versatile. So I'm going to read you what is on the official like book back cover description and everything, and then I'll go with my like kind of
Condensed.
sum up.
Yeah.
The back cover of this book says, "No fate could be more terrifying than being trapped inside deep space, unless there's something unknown out there with you."
Whoa.
Which I think is a little confusing because it says trapped inside deep space, and then something is unknown out there.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it, but So then the internal flap of the book says, when the Imperial prison barge Purge, temporary home to 500 of the galaxy's most ruthless killers, rebels, scoundrels, and thieves. So it's like Con Air.
I want to be a scoundrel too. A
Yeah.
honcho and a scoundrel.
Ooh, that's a good combo. But that combo gets people landed in jail in white collar.
You're right.
White collar prisons.
You're right. Maybe I'll
Honchos
just
and
go with
scoundrels.
honcho.
Stick with honcho.
Yeah.
When this Con Air breaks down in a distant, uninhabited part of space, its only hope seems to lie with a star destroyer found drifting, derelict, and seemingly abandoned. It's like a ship. But when a boarding party is sent to scavenge for parts, only half of them come back, bringing with them a horrific disease so lethal that within hours, nearly all aboard the Purge will die in ways too hideous to imagine. And death is only the beginning. The Purge's half-dozen survivors, 2 teenage brothers, a sadistic captain of the guards, a couple of rogue smugglers, and the chief medical officer, who's the lone woman on board, will do whatever it takes to stay alive. But nothing can prepare them for what lies waiting on board the Star Destroyer amid its vast, creaking emptiness that isn't really empty at all. For the dead are rising, soulless, unstoppable, and unspeakably hungry.
Wow.
Not good. So I also got these summaries from starwars.fandom.com if you want to check it out. I basically went in and I took all the horror stuff from these. So there's more descriptions of like action and shooting, and they got off this ship that way, but I just kind of like boiled down the elements.
Yeah, I think that's all we really want here. Yeah.
Exactly. But I wanted to mention the first twist in this story are that Han Solo and Chewie are aboard the prison ship Han Solo.
Han Solo, my favorite character, the son of Han Solo from Star Wars, and Mr. Sulu from Star Trek. Han Sulu. George Takei and Harrison
Han Solo
Ford.
and Chewie got mixed up in the mouth, like gruel and Mean Girls. But yeah, Han Solo and Chewie are prisoners aboard the ship.
Boy, they pop up everywhere. I'm going to tell you a horror story soon where Han Solo and Chewie just show up as well.
They're favorites. You got to put them in there. I guess it's a thrill. But and I guess they were scoundrels, right? Like, weren't they kind of like thieves and stuff?
Yes, they're like smugglers and stuff.
Yeah.
Here's a good line. Zombies. I hate these guys. Which steals an Indiana Jones line about Nazis, but gives it to Han Solo because they're really sort of, the same thing.
Wait, does Indiana Jones say Nazis? I hate these guys?
Yes.
Really? I thought you were doing like snakes. I hate snakes.
No, you know what? Nazis and snakes, he really kind of thinks of them the same way.
Well, I mean.
Snakes, I hate snakes.
About right.
Nazis, I hate these guys.
Yeah.
Zombies, I hate these guys. Come on, Chewie.
I don't know. He's got a very casual hate for all these things.
He does.
You know what I mean? Like the things I hate, I'm like, I hate this, not just like, I hate these.
You know what I can't stand, pretty much? Nazis.
Yeah. I don't like them. All cash talking about it. They're not for me. I hate them. But
to each their own, but I don't.
Yeah, all laid back about it.
I understand if you think Nazis are great.
Right.
I personally don't like them.
I hate them. So yeah, Han Solo and Chewie are there, and when all hell starts breaking loose, like I said in the the summary, like this disease gets onto the prison ship, a medic who seems to be immune gives them some of an antivirus that they have.
Sure.
So the people who weren't immune to the virus are becoming zombies left and right, and so getting off this prison barge is tricky, and there's a lot of action involved. Right. It's pretty standard zombie stuff, it seems like, for the most part. So, like I said, they're like slow, they're kind of shambling, but they have blasters, like like Star Wars guns. Yes. And it says at first, which actually sounds kind of cool, that they're shooting, but they're shooting like terribly. Like they're all erratic and all over the place, which is kind of awesome. But then they seem to get better at the shooting over time. So a rescue pod grabs like the head guard of that prison ship, and they explain to that person that the zombie outbreak is a result of a biological weapon that was created by the Empire. So those are bad guys, right?
Sure, yeah.
And that the zombies are capable of learning. So that's why their shooting gets a little bit better. They were shooting all crazy and erratic, and they must have realized that
like
this isn't
Yosemite
going so well. Yeah, exactly. They must realize it wasn't going so well. So they lowered their hands and guns from above their heads and then started pointing them at the things that they wanted to shoot.
Smart.
So they can learn, basically. And the guard who is on this escape pod with these people who saved them starts to notice that the men who are talking to them and explaining this are licking their lips a lot while they're talking. And they reveal that they've been stuck on this shuttle for 10 weeks and that they started with 30 men and that they're down to 6.
Oh.
They did what they had to survive.
Wait. So there are zombies and there are cannibals?
Yes.
That's
like Donner
unusual.
Party style cannibals. So these guys aren't zombies, but they had to escape from the zombies and they've been away for so long they had to start eating each other.
So we're running away from two different kinds of things that will eat you.
Yes.
Also, when you're looking at something you want to eat, you lick your lips constantly. Like
I know. I thought that was like really funny. And
that's
goofy.
like a depiction of like a pauper from England, like looking at a ham in a window.
I know. When I was reading this, it said like they start to notice they're licking their lips a lot. I was like, oh, are they maybe sick and their body is like drying out?
That's what I was thinking.
But no, it's that they're hungry.
Right. Yeah, that's like they're looking at, Han Solo.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he turns into like a cooked chicken
like a ham.
for a second and then fades back in him. They say, "Why are you looking at me like that?"
Yeah.
Chewie, we gotta get out of here.
Well,
and then he looks over at Chewie and someone's putting salt on Chewie.
Yeah. Viewing him like Newman views Kramer that time, he's imagining him as a turkey.
Hey, buddy.
Because he's tanning so much and putting butter on himself.
Using butter to tan with.
So that guard is able to get away, even though we're closing in on him, and the book ends somehow. So now let's talk about Red Harvest, the prequel. So apparently,
wait. How did that end? They just get away?
Yeah, they get away.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, I like missed the ending entirely.
That's it. The guy gets away.
They just get away. Okay.
Yes. And maybe there was a little bit more stuff that was non-horror-y.
Why did the Empire want this?
I don't know, for control. Maybe the zombies would be easy to control or something.
Immortality?
We'll find out.
There's a whole thing of immortality in the movies.
There's a thing of immortality in this next book, which is the prequel.
Okay.
So we'll find out the origins of the virus that they call the sickness.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of read between the lines and be like, all right, maybe some principles that drove things in this prequel that I'm about to read about drove things in, what's it called? Death Troopers.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe they wanted to get this out so that... Actually, now that I think about it might have gotten out accidentally in Death Troopers. There was a more focused reason in Red Harvest.
Do they give any sort of an ending of why we didn't see zombies in Empire Strikes Back?
Not that I read.
They just got away from the ones on that one ship, and that's just it?
Not that I read. Or registered, maybe I should say.
Will those zombies eventually learn how to fly that ship? Because they eventually learn.
That's a really good question.
But they're still just out there?
Yeah, they're out there,
Did they blow up the ship?
Unclear. I would go to starwars.fandom.com.
Ask them your questions.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because I did try to distill the horror stuff, and that could mean that I just left off the ending.
It would be awesome if in like the new movie they're fighting, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, a zombie lands on the planet.
Right, you're like,
from outer
whoa.
space, and like, oh, it's you from 1BB1ABY.
Right. From Death Troopers.
From Death Troopers. You're here.
Formerly known as an undead trooper.
Run!
Yeah. Or currently known as an undead trooper.
And then Han Solo shows up. He's alive again and goes,
Yeah.
Zombies. I am these guys.
I have to assume he got away somehow.
He's undead.
Yeah.
He did, because he ends up on Hoth,
Oh,
and
right,
he puts Luke inside of a space pony
Yeah.
to keep him warm.
Ugh, that'd be so gross.
He goes, it's not going to smell too good, kid, but it'll keep you alive.
All right, I guess you got to do what you got to do. So here is Red Harvest, the prequel, where we find out the origins of this virus that turns people into zombies. So here's the publisher's summary first. The era of the Old Republic is a dark and dangerous time, as Jedi Knights valiantly battle the Sith Lords and their ruthless armies. But the Sith have disturbing plans, and none more so than the fulfillment of Darth Scabrous' fanatical dream, which is about to become nightmarish reality. Unlike those other Jedi sidelined to the agricultural corps, young Jedi whose abilities have not proved up to snuff, Hestizo Trace possesses one extraordinary Force talent, a gift with plants. Suddenly, her quiet existence among greenhouse and garden specimens is violently destroyed by the arrival of an emissary from Dark Scabrous. For the rare black orchid that she has nurtured and bonded with is the final ingredient in an ancient Sith formula that promises to grant Darth Scabrous his greatest desire. But at the heart of the formula is a never-before-seen virus that's worse than fatal. It doesn't just kill, it transforms. Now the rotting, ravenous dead are rising, driven by a bloodthirsty hunger for all things living, and commanded by a Sith master with an insatiable lust for power and the ultimate prize, immortality. No matter the cost. So this book seems much less actiony, more magic-y. There was less description of like, they jumped at this ship and then pew pew. It's kind of more like story-based. So Darth Scabrous is the head of a Sith school, and he finds out about this orchid with powers that he wants. So he sends one of his bad guys to go steal it. It's at academy. The army.
Do you know when this book takes place?
Before the last one.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay. For there to even be a Sith school, it feels like it has to be a long time.
I mean, what I said in the beginning that I read was that the virus appeared between the Battle of Yavin and the Battle of Hoth. So that would mean this is the first appearance of the virus, what I'm reading right now.
Then it feels like the implication is this happens at the end of A New Hope, but there's a whole school of bad guys, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares?
I don't know.
The answer is who cares?
Yes, that's the correct answer.
Right.
So he finds out about the powers that this black orchid has on this other planet with Padawan Hestizo Trace. So he sends a bad guy to go steal it, but it can't be removed from that planet without taking Hestizo Trace because they're so bonded together. So he ends up just like taking her with it because he needs the orchid. So he's like, I'll take you too. So when they get to the school, I guess, Scabrous mixes up the orchid in a device and then he hooks it up to his Sith apprentice, whose purpose is basically to like experiment on. And that person dies and then they come back as a zombie. So the infection ends up spreading over a single night all around the academy. I guess it's more catching than they realized, and even infects Scabrous.
Oh no.
Which he was not counting on. So Hestizo Trace and the guy who stole her are in the unenviable position, I wrote, of working together to fight off the zombies.
I don't envy them.
Yeah. Well, they're enemies. He stole her. She probably doesn't like that. You know, he's a bad guy. So I guess we have to work together. So even though he's been infected by the virus from the orchid, Scabrous has his wits about him a little bit. I guess it takes a little while to take effect or something. And he still wants to try to become immortal without totally succumbing and turning into a zombie. Because the zombies are immortal unless you kill them. But he doesn't want that kind of immortality. He wants his wits about him and like a cognizant immortality. So to do that, he infects a librarian.
What?
Yes. And he forces the librarian to lure Hestizo Trace to the library by mimicking the voice of the orchid. So this librarian somehow sounds like an orchid calling to Hestizo. I'm a flower. I need help from you.
Can you come and help me, please? It's me, the orchid.
The flower. So she gets there. She heeds that call. And when she gets there, she sees it's a trap, but Scabrous straps her to a sacrificial altar so that he can cut out her heart and eat it.
Oh.
Because that way he'll be able to become immortal. He thinks it should be able to cancel out the decay of the sickness while still letting him be zombie immortal.
Did it work?
No.
Oh.
Because she's able to get free and she telepathically, this is kind of badass. She's able to telepathically communicate with the part of the orchid that's inside Scabrous, because this virus is made from the orchid, telepathically communicate with it and ask it to sprout itself through his head.
What?
You go for the head with zombies.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
I know. So this weakens him. It doesn't totally kill him, but it weakens him enough that then she can kill him.
I think it's also gross for this to be a plant.
Yes.
That can suddenly grow itself. And so it's like a little parasite
I know.
inside
It reminds me of that like freaky ant.
Cordyceps.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she and the others who are around there contain the current outbreak. They're able to like contain it to a degree. Obviously not all the way, because then it comes back in the other thing. And this is why. There's still another black orchid on her planet. There's another one that's growing, but she decides not to tend to it and instead resume her proper Jedi studies elsewhere.
So
maybe she's like, I'm just done with this black orchid. I'm washing my hands of it. And then
okay, that wasn't good.
Not for me. And then that black orchid maybe blooms and becomes what happens in the book Death Troopers.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
And so that's how they got zombies into Star Wars.
Yeah.
Black Orchid.
Right.
It's vaguely interesting. And they only made the two.
Cool. Yep. As far as I know, as far as I saw on the Star Wars fandom thing.
Well, I should say one of the things that I haven't really brought up is that once Disney bought Star Wars from George Lucas, they renamed anything that's not the movies to be like non-canon. They're now referred to as Star Wars Legends. So
I think those were the only two, because
none of this really happened. Even if there was a third in development, they probably canceled it. They're like, nope, no zombies in Star Wars.
Yeah,
or
that's
something
true.
like that. So I think the last thing that I'm going to tell you about is a book of young adult novels I found called the Galaxy of Fear series.
Okay.
Each book was its own, somewhat standalone horror story. It always followed the same characters from book to book to book, but they would always like go to a new planet, discover a new horror, figure out the truth behind it, and then go to the next place.
Cool.
And it was a way to fight. Well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you that just yet. I'll tell you this. Guess what decade they were made in. All I'm going to tell you, because I want to see if you'll think the same thing that I did. The main characters of this series are Tash, Mammon, and Zach. What decade were these books made in?
The 2000s?
No. All right, we didn't have the same thought process.
What?
The second that I saw the name Zach, which is Z-A-K, because it's Star Wars, I went, this is the 90s. Zach is going to be like our roguish good guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were made from 1997 to 1998.
Oh,
I was like, I felt like I had a real like jackpot moment just from seeing the name Zach. But they were a way to basically have a Star Wars Goosebumps series.
That's cool.
Yeah. So each book is, only a couple hundred pages.
Yeah.
Large font. And here is an author named Daniel Wallace had this to say about the series. For those who don't know, Galaxy of Fear was a series of young adult books by John Whitman that tied into the teen horror genre popularized by such authors as R.L. Stine. And for something that seems like a product of its time, I thought they were a lot of fun. But I'd be nervous if I were given the opportunity to write the sequel, since every single chapter of those books had to end with a cliffhanger. It was the law. A chapter would finish with, Tash stepped off the spaceship and heard a blood-curdling scream.
Yeah.
Then you'd read the next chapter and it would say, but apparently it was just a bird.
I love books like that, though, honestly. Like page-turnery. I love that. I got a real soft spot for it.
You and I read and reviewed some Goosebumps books on our old podcast, Book Club, Schmook Club. And I remember that was like a major complaint of mine, that every single chapter had to be like, they opened the door and saw a face.
Right.
It was their grandma. She said, you want some cookies? Like, it always had to have that rhythm.
Totally. A lot of like paperback mysteries are like that. Like a lot of James Patterson books are like that.
Oh, really?
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But with not as a cheap or nothing payoff. Like it won't really be a cliffhanger where
it just has to
like,
be engaging.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I don't really love it when the cliffhanger ends up being a nothing.
Right.
But I like a page turner.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah, that description really was like, yeah, this is just Goosebumps
it's very evocative.
in Star Wars form.
Right.
So there were only 12 books. Across those 12 books, basically everybody from Star Wars ends up having a cameo. Luke, C-3PO shows up in them periodically, whatever.
So to give him a thrill.
Yeah. And there are, 12 different stories that all concern these same characters, basically. But there's only one story that I thought was particularly worth sharing.
Cool.
And that is book 2 of the series. They had... I found on Wikipedia there are basically synopses of all the books. The only one that really gets any attention is book 2, and I think there's a good reason for that, because otherwise there's stuff like The Hunger. Yoda shows up. There's a book called Clones. Darth Vader fights his own clone.
Okay.
The Doomsday Ship, Spore, The Swarm. Oh, there is a cool one.
Wait, did you say Spore? Is that one of them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
An ancient life form has been released from its tomb.
Okay.
Can you survive the spore? There is one called Brain Spiders, where they go to Jabba the Hutt's house, and they find out that there is a serial killer there who kills people and then carves the letter K into their skull.
Really? That's not at all what I figured Brain Spiders was about. I was going to make a joke about how that's probably very literal, and it doesn't sound like it.
Well... There's
Probably
a literal aspect to it, yeah.
Yeah.
At some point when they're trying to figure out who the hell's doing it, Zach sees his sister Tash kill someone and carve a K into their skull.
Oh, no.
And she's like a little girl.
So
she's like,
Brain
Tash?
Spiders made her do it?
Yeah, later on a spider spells out, I'm Tash, in the sand. There was a psychic switcheroo, I guess. I don't know why spiders like the letter K. I don't know.
That's really funny.
Who the
I'm
hell knows?
Tash.
Yeah. There's a book called Army of Terror where a monster turns into a bigger monster. All I remember about it was that in the summary, the word suddenly is used a lot.
Oh.
Suddenly this happens when suddenly she appears, but suddenly it all falls apart.
Surprising when summaries aren't written well, right?
Yeah. Ghost of the Jedi. They go to a Jedi library. A lot of libraries and librarians in Star Wars. There's a ghost inside, but it's not a Jedi's ghost.
Oh.
Whatever. There's a cool one called The Nightmare Machine. You go to a theme park where holograms delight you.
That straight up sounds like that could be a Goosebumps.
1,000%. And in there they have something they call the Nightmare Machine, which scans your brain, then shows you your worst fears.
Ooh.
Hairy, creepy crawly insects, Cyborian battle dogs thirsting for blood. But it's not real. Rumpelstiltskins. Shrunkle goblins.
Yeah, Shrunkle goblins.
It's not real, so it's fun, right? Wrong.
Buh.
As Zach and Tash will soon find out, nightmares can come true. There's a plague where Tash has a bump on her arm that won't stop growing.
Ugh.
Stuff
I don't like
that.
the sound of that.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the only one that I think is really worth any discussion is, once again, book 2 called City of the Dead.
Cool.
Here is the description from the back of the book. Welcome to the City of the Dead. When Hool, that's their uncle, Tash and Zach stop on Necropolis to look for a new starship, Zach immediately makes friends with the local kids. And he's willing to pull a crazy stunt like going into the Necropolitan Cemetery at midnight just to prove he's as tough as they are. The cemetery is silent as death and full of white, wriggling bone worms.
Ugh.
And maybe Zach should have thought twice before accepting this dare. Just because the bodies are buried doesn't mean they're dead.
Yikes.
Now, necropolis is a term that means city of the dead.
Yeah, right.
It's also the title of one of the Return of the Living Dead sequels. One of the bad ones.
Yeah.
Bone worms, which got mentioned in that description, are, I looked on Wikipedia, they are a type of nematode.
Oh.
Nematodes are real.
Right.
I thought nematodes were just the things from Doug when he bagged a nematode. Kalukuku or whatever he had to say. But
oh my God, that's right.
Nematodes in real life are roundworms.
Ew.
Yeah. Anyway, the bone worms live in the soil of the great cemetery at the necropolis. It's basically, the necropolis is basically a planet where people store their dead.
Right.
And so the bone worms live underground and eat the dead. They eat the marrow out of their bones. They're pale, white, slimy things. They kind of made me think of the movie Prometheus. They encounter like a disgusting like snake worm thing there. Anyway, here's the plot. Zach has nightmares of his dead family. The characters of these novels are the sort of only survivors of when Darth Vader and the Empire blew up a planet in A New Hope. So they're some of the only survivors of that explosion.
Okay.
So he has a nightmare about his dead family. His mother is outside his window asking why he left them behind.
Oh, God.
Here's a quote from the book. A dead gray hand rose into view. It was followed by a pale white arm and then strands of blackened hair. Finally, the figure's face floated into view. It was white with empty sockets for eyes, but he recognized the face anyway. It was his mother. As he watched in horror, the mouth moved and Zach heard his mother's voice moan, "Zach, why did you leave us behind?"
The worst.
It's a good goosebumpsy, scary thing to happen.
Absolutely.
He wakes up and he's on board the Millennium Falcon. Evidently, Han Solo and Chewbacca saved them at the end of the first book.
Of course they did.
But then they drop him and his family off on Necropolis.
That's weird. Why do they do that?
I don't know. I guess they were trying to get a new ship there, but it just doesn't seem great.
No. Not a
like
great...
for Han to be like, good luck, kid. You're on the city of the dead now.
Yeah, you're on your own now.
Surrounded by corpses. Me and Chewie are going to go on a nice adventure.
It's not a great look for Hans and Chewie.
Hans and Chewie.
Hans Sulu.
Hans.
What did I say?
Hans.
Oh,
Called him Hans. Hans and Chewie. Not a good look for Hans and Chewie. Anyway. According to the synopsis, they're on their way to a hotel. Do you think of hotels?
I didn't think of hotels, libraries, or schools as Star Wars things, but I guess we're learning a lot.
I think there's a thing in one of the prequels where somebody goes like, she's my girlfriend. And it's like, your girlfriend? What? Or anyway, they're on their way to a hotel when suddenly Boba Fett appears. Do you know who that is?
No.
You've seen the show The Mandalorian?
Yes.
He dresses exactly like that. He's one of the most beloved Star Wars characters. He's a bounty hunter, but he's like he's got, I would say maybe, let's say 5 minutes of footage dedicated to him in all the original movies.
Yeah.
Anyway, Boba Fett, the bounty hunter, shows up and says that he's looking for Dr. Evanzan. Do you know who that is?
No.
You may not even remember this moment, but people out there who know Star Wars will. In the original movie, when Luke and Obi-Wan go into the cantina on Tatooine, the desert planet, there's a guy hanging out. He's like a disgusting, disfigured face man.
Okay.
And he's got like a pig nose. Okay. And he's hanging out with a guy who has a butt for a chin.
Okay.
And the butt chin goes like... And then... Luke's like, what?
I'm sorry, what now?
And the guy goes, he says he doesn't like you. I don't like you either. And then Obi-Wan chops off one of their arms with a light sword.
Oh.
Light sword.
That seems...
Lightsaber.
Well, whatever.
Anyway. The man with the pig nose is Dr. Evanson.
Okay.
He mentions in that movie, he's like, we're wanted on 12 systems.
Yeah.
We're wanted men, he says. The books have expanded that character so much. He's a doctor who has been doing unnecessary surgery on people.
Oh.
And so he's the big villain of this book.
Yeah.
So Boba Fett is looking for Pig Nose who hangs out with Buttface.
Yeah.
So it turns out Boba Fett's looking for him because he's wanted on 12 systems for illegal medical practices and the torture of his victims.
Good God.
Also, Buttface's name is Ponda Baba.
Okay.
Which I found out and I like. Ponda Baba. My favorite character, Buttface. Boba Fett is concerned because somebody he had previously killed on Necropolis is alive and well.
Oh.
People are wondering if Dr. Evanson is responsible. Supposedly the dead are rising on the planet actually because of a curse placed on the planet centuries ago. Here's a legend they get into. There was a witch named Sycorax who claimed to be a necromancer. No one believed her, so they killed her son.
Oh.
To get her.
Like make her prove it.
Bring your son back, necromancer.
Yeah.
It ended up killing her.
Oh.
With her dying breath, she cursed the Necropolitans to observe the rites of the dead or suffer their vengeful return. So they now watch over the dead. They make sure that like the graves are tended to and whatever.
Wow.
So now Zach, the kid, hears this and thinks of only, you mean I can resurrect my family?
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, Zach is awakened by some of the Necropolitan children who want him to join their society club, whatever. And so basically they challenge him, they dare him to go into the sacred cemetery and mark a grave with a knife to prove his bravery, that he's been there. He goes into the cemetery and just calls out, begging Sycorax, hoping she can hear him, please bring my parents back. Nothing happens. Except the evil doctor. Dr. Evanson appears along with his Necropolitan friend, a little boy named Cairn. Which, by the way, now I'm starting to get a lot of Blair Witch vibes out of this. There's a little boy named Cairn.
Yeah.
Cairns of Stones were left for Heather, Josh, and Mike.
Right.
There's a witch who was like tortured and now is supposedly like cursing
curses
the land. Quite frankly, the entire I don't remember what this book series is called that I'm talking about right now. The evil Galaxy young adult
Galaxy
series.
Fear or something.
Galaxy of Fear. Yeah. Is a lot like the Blair Witch Files, another young adult series that was made for the Blair Witch Project.
And maybe somewhere around the same time, I would imagine.
I would think
like
so.
ballpark.
Yeah, I'm literally holding one of the Blair Witch Files books right now.
Yeah.
I've never read them. When was this published? 2000? About 2000. So the era is correct. I guess they weren't competing. The Galaxy of Fear books would have been finished publishing by the time they tried to do the Blair Witch Files books. But the concept is still the same. A series of standalone adventures with a through line of the main characters who experience this stuff.
Right.
And, you know, legends that kind of come back to attack you.
Well, and then these books came out around the time that the Blair Witch... No, before. Never mind.
No, well, they would have been out... Blair Witch is 98?
99.
97? Blair Witch is 99? No, it's not.
I think it is.
Is it really? Yeah, I think you're right. Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
So then, these were, but I guess these were really more biting off of Goosebumps.
I think it's a quinky dink.
And then Blair Witch decided to do the same thing.
Right.
Try to get back at Goosebumps.
Yeah.
For all that, the kids' time and attention. So anyway, Dr. Evanson brings a little boy named Cairn out, and he poisons Cairn with crypt berries.
Oh.
Killing him. He kills a little boy in front of Zach.
Oh my God, hasn't Zach been through enough?
I know. And then Boba Fett kills the doctor.
Oh.
Then, because there are rules, they are both buried inside the tombs of Necropolis. Zach has more dreams, more ghosts that come to visit him at his window. And the next morning, he rises and is, walking around adventuring, whatever, and at some point thinks that he sees Dr. Evanson.
Yeah.
But how's that possible? He's dead, or is he?
Not on Necropolis.
Cairn is also alive and insists that Cairn, has discovered the secret of immortality. He gets Zach to follow him back to the graveyard, but instead of seeing the witch Sycorax, Cairn has brought him to the doctor. The doctor reveals his evil plot. It turns out that he has developed a serum to bring people back from the dead. The one problem is there's a missing ingredient. That missing ingredient?
Love.
Slime from the bone worms that feast on the bodies buried at Necropolis. So, when they were buried there, he had given them the serum using the crypt berries, and then they got the missing ingredient from the bone worms that came to eat them, and it brought them back to life.
Yeah.
To further do his testing, Dr. Evanson injects Zach with a diluted cryptberry serum. It doesn't kill him, but it does kind of put him into a coma. And it made me think it's kind of like Juliet from Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
It's like a drought of the living death.
Right.
It turns out that one of the rulers on the planet who's overwatching the dead and following the rites, lest Sycorax haunt them, is in cahoots with the evil doctor. Because he, at one point in his studies, found Sycorax's tomb, and instead of her being some all-powerful witch, all he found was her frail, desiccated corpse. So let down, knowing that the magic is not real, he decided to turn evil, work with Dr. Sycorax. Zach wakes up in his coffin, but he can't move or speak. He can just hear that he's at his own funeral, and he can hear as he's buried in the earth, and he can hear the flobber worms, or whatever they're called, bone worms, coming to eat him. When
this is good.
It's not bad, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
When suddenly Boba Fett shows up to save the day. Boba Fett's not like a good guy.
Okay.
I guess he's maybe neutral-ish.
Yeah.
But so he found out the plan.
But the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly. He found out the plan somehow, whatever. And they find out that there's also a reverse serum that if you splash it on zombies, turns them back into dead corpses.
Oh.
And he puts down Dr. Evans in for good.
Good.
The way the episode ends is with Zach realizing that his most recent nightmare where the dead came to visit him wasn't a nightmare at all. He finds bits of flesh on his windowsill, meaning that a zombie did come and look at him in the night.
Oh my God.
And the evil guy who like turned on his own culture basically is found dead, but there's no explanation of how he died. He kind of just dropped dead, and they're like, maybe Sycorax is real. And because he had turned on the job he was supposed to do, she smote him.
Yeah.
She killed him. And then the ultimate thing that happens is it's said that one of the signs of being a resurrected zombie with that serum is that you twitch periodically. And Zach, the young boy, they're flying away from the planet. Another adventure done.
Uh-oh.
And Zach insists that he's fine. His uncle wants to have him examined and stuff. He's like, no, I'm fine, uncle.
Yeah.
And he starts twitching.
Uh-oh.
So he's not fine.
No, he's not.
But it never really comes back up.
Oh. Well.
But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, totally.
So that is Galaxy of Fear, Necropolis, City of the Dead.
It sounds pretty sweet.
Kind of dope.
Yeah.
Kind of rad.
Yeah.
So I want to leave with this, because we're basically at the end. Everything that we researched, we've just shared, the horrors of Star Wars. I want to quickly say something that would involve spoiling.
Okay.
Rise of Skywalker. So if you are afraid of spoilers for Rise of Skywalker, now is the time to go. I think turn and leave. Turn tail and get out of here. And thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Follow us on line.
Yeah.
At GTTUpod, and give us money on Patreon.
Please.
.com/GTTUpod. So in Rise of Skywalker, I think they show the end of something that is a secret, spooky thing happening through all of Star Wars. Maybe not so secret. It's kind of there, but they don't really get into it. People gradually turning into robots and immortality. I think that your story of the zombies, the idea was to chase immortality.
Yeah.
Dr. Evanson, friend of Buttface,
Yes.
was trying to chase immortality. I think the entire point of Star Wars as we know it is about weirdo witches and wizards trying to find ways to live forever. And I think the one thing that is always shown to not work is that, like, you know, Luke gets his hand chopped off and it gets replaced with a robot hand. Freaky deaky. Then, you know, Vader's legs were chopped off and his arms were chopped off and replaced with robot parts. Also scary.
Yes.
And in Rise of Skywalker, we're reintroduced to the Emperor Palpatine, but he is now hanging off of this metal arm, which is, I guess, pumping his blood and keeping him alive.
Yeah.
And so he's really just kind of like a torso on a machine.
Yeah.
And
he has hands. They're messed up.
Yeah. Well, your arms are part of your torso.
No, I wouldn't say that. Your torso is just this. Your chest
fair enough. A torso, arms, and a head on a machine. But yeah, he's got hands, but his fingers are all like burned off.
Does he not have legs?
I didn't really see. I just saw the cloak hanging. Maybe he had legs and they were just dangling like Charlie McCarthy, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. I didn't even think about it.
But he is just like a body, barely alive on this thing, and it's like, well, it seems like you've kind of achieved immortality, but it sucks.
Yeah, totally. Mischief managed.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like you'll get the thing you're looking for, but it comes at a price.
But you want it? Yeah.
And your eyes get all like milked over and gross, and you have
half hands,
cobblepot mouth, with that black slime all around your lips.
Definitely. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's just vaguely interesting to me. Like now being able to look back at all of Star Wars, which has been a brutally unplanned franchise.
Yeah.
I think there's a through line in all of it about finding out how to live forever.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a through line in a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the driving focus of a lot of bad guys is immortality.
True.
You know?
I guess
I think it's just kind of a classic thing.
It is, but I feel like even though it's like Voldemort wanted to live forever, right? They put a focus on it.
Yes.
And they said, here's how he wanted to live forever. He created these 7 they came up with a novel concept. In Star Wars, it's kind of like, well, if you're good, you die and you can become a ghost. And so I guess you kind of live forever. You're around forever.
Yeah.
Or you're a bad guy and you just continually replace your body parts with machines.
Right.
And it's a torturous existence, but at least
it doesn't
you have
seem
a long
like in
life.
a good way. You know what I mean? Like there are ways to like replace body parts with machines where you're like thriving and it's like sweet, but like these dudes aren't thriving.
And so like they show us that.
Yeah.
That happens in there, but there's not really a focal point on that. I think that would be a really interesting thing for those movies to be about.
Yeah.
Is trying to chase it. And even like Emperor Palpatine being oddly jealous of Luke that he gets to be a Force ghost.
Right.
One of the original ideas that I had because it was announced that they were bringing back Palpatine like a couple of years ago. The way that he died in the original movies is he's thrown into a pit. Yeah. And then they blow up the station that he's on. I thought it would be cool if the way that Sith get to be ghosts is like Luke seems like he can just like fly around the planets and kind of do whatever he wants. Seems like he can go wherever he wants and do whatever he wants. Yeah. I thought it'd be kind of cool if Palpatine, who wanted to be all powerful and live forever, if he's a ghost right next to his like pile of bones in a cloak that used to be him. Yeah. So he's been stuck on this spot. He can't go everywhere. Right. And he's had to watch his own body rot over the course of time.
Yeah, that's a sweet idea.
It's sort of like a punishment. Buddy's living forever. Buddy's at the bottom of a pit. Right. In darkness. Right. And so the only way that he can exercise any of what he enjoys is by like essentially spilling poison in the ear of like Kylo Ren. I'll give you advice on how to do things. But he's like the devil on your shoulder.
Yeah, he can only live vicariously.
Yes, he can only live vicariously. It's like the ultimate punishment. Yeah. And so in that way, the ultimate villain to defeat is death. He'd be like a vision of death. Yeah. But then they did something that I guess was kind of cool. They turned him into a weird...
It was sweet. I liked it.
Witch puppet on a machine.
Yeah, totally. It's pretty cool.
Also, because I just want to say this because I don't think I've seen anybody say this, so I just want this to be the first place it's ever been said. Okay. He looked like GLaDOS from Portal.
Right, I remember you saying that.
And he was defeated the same way that Goku defeats Cell in Dragon Ball Z. And then Rey picks her lineage like Harry Potter choosing not to be in Slytherin. Yes. And decides to be a Skywalker.
Yes, totally.
They took 3 cool things and mashed them together and put them in Star Wars, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But I haven't heard anybody say that. Yeah. And I feel insecure about posting it online without people screaming at me about spoilers, so I'll say it here.
You posted on Twitter, not Slither, not so. I didn't know what you were talking about.
I had to get it out somehow. It was eating me.
Why didn't you say like...
It was eating me from inside.
But it was totally contextless.
I thought there would be people...
I was like, I really don't understand what he's referring to, so I'm just not going to comment on it.
Well, because if anybody like read my tweets, I say something about Star Wars and not wanting to spoil things. Okay. And then I talk about Goku defeating Cell. And not
I guess I didn't get, because I was like, all right, what did he tweet before this? What did he tweet after? And I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Then it was too subtle.
It was too subtle for me because I was like, okay, it's part of a larger thing. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. Yeah.
Damn. I want my due.
I would say it a little bit more explicitly then.
Okay. You know what? A little time has gone by now. Maybe it's time.
Give it a shot.
I'll have my day in the sun.
I completely agree. I think it's a good thought.
Yeah, I want to be a honcho.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to make honcho decisions.
Exactly. You got to make honcho decisions. You got to promote yourself a little bit. Baby, get out there.
Yeah, you're not
Share
wrong.
your thoughts.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Well, there you go, everybody.
There you go, guys. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed the horror of Star Wars. It was so much richer a vein than I expected.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Welcome to 2020.
Yes, that's right. We're in the new millennium, I keep calling it.
Sure, the Willennium. Ha 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 ha.
Oh.
A whole year of frights is waiting for you. We've got some cool ideas of stuff to do, so stay tuned to Guide to the Unknown. Follow at GTTUpod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Back us on patreon.com/GTTUpod.
Yeah.
Become another World Warrior starting at $4 to get access to bonus stuff that only our closest allies and Padawans
That's right.
can perceive.
Absolutely.
Join our secret group on facebook.com/group/GTTUpod. And if you want, you can talk to us directly online as well.
That's right. I'm at Chillin' Kristen on Instagram and Twitter.
I am known as the Myth Traveler. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We will see you next week for more spooky tales from around the galaxy. But until that time comes, we must lightspeed travel.
Back to another planet go we.
That's it.